Hello and welcome to another decisions training video. This is going to be a high performance implications video, and we'll be going over one of the high performance implications features within the flows category. So that feature is going to be the raw SQL step. So let me explain what it actually does. This executes a SQL query against a specified database. The integration to that database is going to be defined elsewhere in your environment. So it executes a query. So what's the issue with this? Well, the issue is not so much that it executes a query, but more to the fact that there's almost always a more performant way to perform the query action within decisions aside from using a raw SQL step. There are multiple more performant methods to accomplish the same task in almost all cases within the Flow Designer. So let me go over some of those alternatives now so you get an idea of when to use them. All right. So the first one is a query integration. This allows for queries to be specified both statically and at runtime with the proper use of variables. Now, you still can pass in flow data to the raw SQL step instead of having it be created statically. However, I do want to mention that you can accomplish this functionality with variables here if you need to just change certain parts of the query. Another option that you have would be a table integration. When you create a table integration against a database, whether it's a native database, the one that Decisions is installed against, or an external database that it's connected with, you can utilize this integration and it will automatically generate CRUD actions when there is a primary key specified, which for all relational databases, there is. This allows you to perform your typical create, delete, update steps against that particular table in the database. And once again, it's more performant than the raw SQL step. If you're trying to use the raw SQL step to accomplish CRUD actions against a table, this is a better method here. And then there's a procedure integration. So if you're trying to run a procedure in a database and your query is to kick off that procedure, you can instead create a procedure integration which will automatically kick off a specified procedure inside of your database whenever the flow hits this step. So let me give you some examples of when you might want to use these other steps. So let's say that your first goal is you want to get all patient records sorted by their most recent visit. So this is a select query and you just have to sort the data that you are fetching. Well, a query integration is going to trump a raw SQL step in this case every time. What about if you are trying to update all warranty records where an expiration is in April to May? You might want to look for a table integration here, as this can perform the update actions against entities in those tables, again, that have a primary key. And let's say that you're trying to run a stored procedure where you want to delete all records that are older than 730 days. Well, we recommend the procedure integration over using the raw SQL step for that. So let me get into the environment now, and I will show you what these alternatives look like. I'm not going to go into great detail about setting them all up because we do have videos covering the usage of these particular steps, which I will link in the description. However, I at least want to show you where you would put these in the Flow Designer to give you an idea of how to use these alternatives instead. All right, here we are inside of my decisions environment once again. So right here, I have a raw SQL step that is designed to pull all items from the element registration table and return that data as data rows. So I could do this via raw SQL, or we have many other methods that we can fetch this particular step. Now, because this is an internal table that we're trying to get, we could use a fetch entity step on the element registration table. And this would be the most performant and recommended way to perform this action. However, if this data is external and you don't have this option for fetch entities, this is where the other steps are going to come in. So if we were to do a query integration instead, we would go to create data type / integration and go down to database integration. You'll notice that all three methods that we suggested are located here. You can also add relationships and view integrations, that these are not going to perform exactly the same functions as the SQL step all the time. So you may want to look into those in the videos that I'm going to be linking in the description to understand how to utilize these in your environment. For the add query integration, we select our connection, and after we create the integration, we can run this, and this will allow us to save the integration. Once this saves, you'll notice inside of our flow designer, underneath integration, database, and under local connection, you'll find the query that we named, execute query integration. This is going to, once again, output the results in either data rows, or you can select a decisions type, just like you can in the Raw SQL step. And it's going to be a more performant method than trying to run the Raw SQL step, and you'd get back the same results. For the table integration, after clicking on Add Table Integration, we once again select the table that we're going to integrate with, which is the element registration table. Here, it's already located the primary key. However, if it doesn't by default, you can specify it over here. And then these are going to be the flow steps that generate from it. So all of your CRUD actions. So let's save this. And now inside of my flow again, underneath integration, database, local connection, you'll see this element registration table that got created here. And you'll see all the steps that we need in here. The last thing you can do is create a procedure integration, which once again will show up underneath integration, database, and then you'll look for the database that you specified, the local connection, or if you're doing a different database, whatever that database name is under here, and you will find the run procedure step. So these are the ways that you can utilize these steps inside of your flow instead of using the Raw SQL step. Once again, for more information on how to set up each one of these integrations, you will want to go to the videos that I have linked in the description. Thank you very much for watching. Hope this helped.